Joined by the host of OverDrive, Bryan Hayes, and it's QB question week here at TSN, so it's only right that we discuss the reigning league MVP, Lamar Jackson. Hayes, Lamar might be the NFL's most polarizing star. He's already got 2 MVPs in just 6 years into his career. His head coach, John Harbaugh, says he will be known as the greatest quarterback of all time. That's high praise. But his playoff record, 2-4. He's been to 1 conference championship game, no Super Bowls. And, of course, they lost that conference championship game last January to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Hayes, are you as convinced as John Harbaugh that Lamar Jackson can win the big one?
I'm convinced he can win the big game. I am not convinced, and I know he will not be considered the greatest quarterback of all time. I have no idea what John Harbaugh is talking about, suggesting that Lamar will eventually surpass Tom Brady, let alone Patrick Mahomes within his own era. I don't believe that's going to happen. But you referenced what's happened to him in the playoffs. 2-4. You are what your record says you are, right? Bill Parcells always historically said that. But what has become true over the years with Lamar Jackson is during the regular season, he is a top 5 quarterback. That is without question. That will not change, in my opinion, moving forward. John Harbaugh is a great coach, and they generally have a top 5 defense. He has a lot going for him. But what he has to adjust to come playoff time, and I believe he will, is an understanding that when you're in the playoffs, you're playing the best defense you're possibly going to play. And it's only going to get harder as you move on from the wild card round to the divisional round to the conference championship to the Super Bowl. The other reality is you're facing likely an elite quarterback on the other side. The best defense you're going to meet all year and probably the best quarterback you're going to go up against consistently week after week after week. He has not been able to figure that out. His statistics fall off in the playoffs, but I'm a believer in his talent. He's still a relatively young player in this league. I believe in his coach. I believe in the system. I believe in the Ravens. Yes, I think he will win the big one. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I think the question isn't so much whether Lamar Jackson can win the big one. It is whether this Ravens staff can win the big one, because their game plan and their adjustments in that conference championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs made no sense at all. They panicked. I mean, they absolutely panicked. And, you know, Kansas City scored 3 times in the first half of that game. And you know what Kansas City's defense was about. And it was like you could just feel the panic in the building. Like, if we go down any further, this thing is over. So they abandoned what they are, which is primarily running the football.
Yes.
They have 5 carries by a running back in that game.
Right.
5 in the entire game. And then you get some turnovers. There's a ball turned over at the 1 on a fumble. There's a ball turned over on an interception. Both of them in the fourth quarter. They weren't far away. I firmly believe that if the Baltimore Ravens had stuck to the script and the game plan and doing what they do well throughout that game, they probably win, because they abandoned it all and lost by 7 with
right.
two fourth-quarter turnovers.
And the Chiefs, we all recall what they did in that first half offensively, what Mahomes did, what Kelsey did. They did nothing in the second half. The Ravens' defense and special teams showed up and took over. And you're right. We all know what has to happen for Lamar Jackson to have success. He cannot sit in the pocket all night and throw the ball. That is not how he's won 2 MVPs. He needs to run the ball. He needs options out of the backfield, and he needs a run game. But that, I think you bring up a great point, is on Harbaugh and the offensive coordinators, and there's been turnover at that position over the years in Baltimore, to commit to it. Because when the opponents and the defensive coordinator on the other side and the defense on the other side all of a sudden commit to the run, that's when his arm is good enough to keep up with Mahomes, to keep up with Burrow. But he can't go toe-to-toe with those guys in the pocket. That's been proven over time. Well, I don't think that changes in the future.
Well, there's a playoff loss in 2019. I know they got down early to Tennessee, but they threw it 59 times.
Right.
Not many quarterbacks anywhere are going to win a game with 59 pass attempts. The other thing I would say about him winning the big game, he's got to get to the big game. And that was the whole, let's be honest, that was the issue on him signing his contract, right? They look at the style of play he has, the number of injuries he'd had, couple of seasons that he's missed. He's not there for 1 playoff game. The other year, they free fall in December and don't make the playoffs because of his injury. So, you know, if you're going to win the big game, you got to get there. He got there a year ago, but I still think health is an issue Lamar Jackson is challenged by when you, especially as you start to project him as a slightly older player as we go along here.
Yes, not the biggest guy, takes a lot of hits, gets outside of the pocket and runs a lot. Has to do that to be effective. And everything that we've been saying here, I think, is what most people acknowledge when you consider what has gone wrong with him in the playoffs. And again, I don't think he can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes in the pocket. Like you said, him throwing the ball 59 times is crazy. It's you're asking to lose. It's basically a guarantee lose. But defenses, they take the Belichick approach with a guy like Lamar. force him to throw.
Make him beat you with his arm.
Make him beat you with his arm. They're going to put a spy on him. They're going to make sure that they put him in a position, not all game, because he's good enough, he's smart enough, and there's enough weapons there where if you do that, he will expose the opponent. But at some point, he's going to get into a 2-minute drill late in the game, either at home, on the road, against Mahomes, against Burrow, against whoever it's going to be, and he's going to have to make a throw. That's the real question. If we're going to break it down to the most isolated part of this, he's going to have to make a big throw at some point, I think, to win that big game.
Well, and that's where quarterback legends are made, in those kinds of situations. And that's different than managing a game where you're running it a lot and you're trying to control the tempo, all those kind of things. But, you see what they did in the offseason when they go out and get Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry, may not be the Derrick Henry of 5 years ago, but he's still a unique back and a guy that they can. I think when you pair Lamar Jackson's running ability with Derrick Henry, you're going to get a different kind of animal out of that backfield as well.
I think you're right, because I think he's a quarterback's best friend because you don't have to throw to him.
Right.
He will move the chains on his own. Hand the ball off, he'll find a gap, and at a minimum, even if the defense is stopping him, that takes multiple backs to do it. Right, that takes a game plan. If he's chugging downhill, you cannot get him with a safety trying to get an arm on him. Even a defensive tackle, you got to take him man on. So I do think that will be beneficial for Lamar in the end. I don't know how much he's got left, Henry. I don't know how many legs, how many more runs he's got in him, but all they really need is a year, right? Because they are in a Super Bowl window. This is not a 3-year plan. This is not a 5-year plan in Baltimore. This is about trying to crack that nut year in, year out. They're a very good team on both sides of the ball. I think they'll go back to the playoffs. We'll see if Lamar's got it in him.
Well, when they get back to the playoffs, I'm going to guess that Derrick Henry gets more than 5 carries this time around.
He better.
In the backfield. He better. Lamar Jackson is the 9th player to win multiple NFL MVP awards in the Super Bowl era. The other 8, they all have Super Bowl rings, but Lamar has yet to make a Super Bowl appearance.